All right. The best part about Miami, as it is the third version of FRANCAMP, the second, as you and I as partners, is that now that we've worked through foundational elements, which I do think missed for many franchisors, we are moving into the adventure part, specifically 2025. So brands or suppliers that are looking at this should be looking at, how do I go to an event and actually walk away with a true game plan for 2025? So Charles, in general, why is this not accomplished at other conferences, and how are we going to accomplish delivering a strategic plan for 2025 through FRANCAMP in Miami?
Yeah, I think we all go through the same process. You go to a conference, and I've been at many amazing conferences, and there's a bunch of good ones in franchising. You hear from a bunch of different speakers, you get a large volume of good ideas, and you get excited. But then you go back home, and 3, 4, 5 months pass, and there was no implementation. And then there's the urge, maybe I just need to hire a vendor, but it's not connecting to the essence. So FRANCAMP Chicago and Miami and all the FRANCAMP events really geared like a boot camp. The idea is a specific achievable task. We're going to go in, build our skills, community, start working on the plan at FRANCAMP, and then implement over the next couple of months, and then take the next level at the next FRANCAMP event. So it's more boot camp than just great idea conference. It's more implementation, hands-on. This is not done for you. This is a team effort. Let's get our hands dirty. Let's start building, and let's build assets that we could keep things escalating.
There's a few things I want to call out what you just said. One is that stuck with me. One is that you go to these conferences and there's good speakers.
Yeah.
But it's hard to know tactically what do you do with a speaking session. You might ask a question and say, well, what's the unicorn in franchise development? And you might get a good answer, but then for you to go implement it ends up being a gap. And so I think the big statement there is you lean towards
I think Nick was, I think we may have lost Nick, huh? Yeah. So
I mean, that's like real campfire, the campfire.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was me, but the real key, Nick, is it's all about that implementation when you get back. I think the biggest issue for emerging brands and franchisors and all of us as business owners is you have all these great ideas, but all we need to do is start implementing. Build that base, focus on the brand assets, focus on the strategic planning, and keep making things better and improving them over time. And that's where FRANCAMP's really going to focus in on.
Well, it's also like if you want to build a fire, you're on a campground. And the whole theme is obviously going back to camp when we were children, which the two things of being a child at camp is you're going to have fun and you're going to learn something, period. And so you think about building a fire. If I arrive at my campsite and I look around like, who's going to build my fire for me? Nobody's going to build your fire for you. And so part of what we're working through at FRANCAMP are groups that are there to help you, tell you how to build the fire, which I am not well equipped for the outdoors, but they're gonna tell you how to do it. But then you got to go through the action steps of doing it. Same with camp, same with camping, same with anything that has to do with building something awesome. It's going to take your hands getting dirty. Yes, there are suppliers or vendors who can help offset some of the challenges that come alongside growth. But here we're going to have these really specific groups. Miami is focused on the adventure. Chicago, which for anybody who had already completed it by Miami point, you have a foundational element. Miami is about setting your growth up for 2025.
Yeah, and even going by the last FRANCAMP event, you have that collaboration. So in the one, if we're contrasting, you go to a conference, great ideas, ton of great guest speakers, you're collaborating, but you're not challenged to implement right then and there. So the collaboration is very different. Rather than just sharing, oh, that's a good idea, and exchanging ideas, we're going to get on the ground. And okay, we have these great ideas, but now let's start thinking about implementation. And it becomes much more difficult and more thoughtful. And now the collaboration is a working effort, right? We're achieving a common good versus just feeling good.
Okay, now let's swing it to a very important topic, which is the price. And so the price for Chicago and Miami are the same. If you're watching this video on our website or you're watching around the web, $750 for franchisor. And if for Charles, you or I, if you and I were going to go to a business summit to learn the action steps that we're going to learn out of this, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars. We're keeping the cost approachable so that franchisors can afford it and can invest in 2025. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that's critical, but also just keep in mind, we're taking everyone's time very serious. So the workbooks and playbooks that we're putting together, this is just not a one-off thing, right? FRANCAMP is meant as a series of events, and sort of like, you go to camp or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and you're earning your badge, right? So we want to do that. We want to collaborate. There is going to be a structured program, guidebooks, action plans for when you leave, hot seats when you're there. So it's an amazing value for sure.
And how cool is that badge? It's right above your head. But Bigfoot again, Bigfoot returning with he's got his boater hat on because, and you'll see this as a theme of everything that we've done at FRANCAMP. Like we're trying to give you the insight and then attach something that is aligned to it. So the big exercise in Miami is we're going to have a boating event because we're on the water. Why not? And so that's an adventure. And so how do you go about building a boat? What is the work that goes into taking that boat out on the water for your adventure to meet your expectations? And so you can see Bigfoot's got the captain's hat on, and we're going to help you captain 2025. Any closing statements on Miami, Charles?
Yeah, well, look, Miami follows Chicago. Chicago, we're going to be focused on building those brand assets, right? What would Bigfoot's story be, and how would he approach his brand? And then Miami is all like Bigfoot is out there. And so what's the game plan and strategy for 2025? Strategic planning, KPIs, deliverables, focusing on, building our radar systems and really focusing on KPIs and data-driven growth.
Well, and I mean, I'm just going to throw this out into the universe. It will be it could be the very first franchise event post-election. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about in December in Miami. Like there's plenty of worse places to be, but yeah, I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation, right?
Well, I think Miami is going to be great. And, forgetting all the politicians, we're just going to focus on entrepreneurs. Yeah.
And finding Bigfoot. So please join us.
Oh, he'll be there.
He'll be there. Join us in Miami.